Welcome back to Tech Garage presented by Advance Auto Parts. Well, we got our JK Jeep up and we got it in process, and I have to tell you, it's a pretty big process. But you know, we rolled it in stock. It was looking pretty good. I mean, it's a Jeep, nothing wrong with it. Had some aftermarket wheels in. We got it into the shop, but it's our style. We got to get this thing up 4 inches, and TerraFlex is going to do just that. But you know, it's a Jeep, great platform, Brian.
It really is. I'll tell you what, it's one of the most engineered platforms out there. We could have put a lift on just about any vehicle, but with the Jeep, we've got a great foundation. There's tremendous potential, and I'll tell you what, by now everybody has seen how you install various lift kits, your various choices. There's a lot to consider, and one thing we loved about the TerraFlex kit that John got us is there's so much information, so much knowledge, and so much engineering into these parts. You'll see how that shows up on our Beastie Jeep.
Now, engineer is the key word. I mean, it's all about alignments and geometry of the vehicle. If you just lift one up, I mean, there's setback from the front rear wheels, there's caster, there's camber. It's not going to be right. With this kit, it's going to be right, and I really like that fact that you found from TerraFlex.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we're using this.
I'll tell you what they taught us was for every 10,000 miles on the road with these types of rigs we build for weekend off-roading, for every 10,000 miles on the road, we average about 10 miles on the trail. So there's so much to consider here. And John talked about caster. Pinion angle's the other thing. You got to do your homework there. Here's what caster is. If this is the front wheel of your rig, this is the back wheel, and you put a lift in it, in this case 4 inches, look what happens to the wheels. The axles actually travel in, so we've got to get that caster back, not just so the wheel looks good in the center of the fender, but so that it drives down the road properly and we don't introduce the death wobble on the Jeep.
That's what this kit does. It absolutely does. Let's start over here with the track rod. Now, this is a piece of spaghetti compared to what's up there. I mean, take a look at that thing.
I mean, just the diameter alone, the weight's nothing, comparatively speaking. We've got adjustability in the new TerraFlex kit you've got on here, and we've got swivels right down in here. So again, we have articulation, not just travel.
Articulation, and we're keeping that axle in the right position.
Sure.
Springs. Now, springs control ride height. Take a look at this. Here's my old spring, and here's my new spring. You see a big difference in the height and also the diameter, along with the variable rate spring. This thing's going to ride nice, but it's going to keep the geometry right.
Yep.
Our control arms, oh my goodness. Here's the stamp piece right here. This thing here, if I pick this up, man, it almost takes 2 arms to curl. This might work out.
Yeah, that's a good workout right there.
This thing is beefy.
The Zerk fittings, you can't underestimate the value of Zerk fittings. You're going to have this thing off-road, swampy, muddy conditions, rocks, everything else. Zerk fittings are huge, as well as look at the swivels in here at every link point. Again, articulation, not just travel. That's what TerraFlex has engineered into it.
Keeping that geometry right. Upper control arm, same thing. Beefy, got the swivels instead of this little guy here. And then just as importantly are the shock absorbers. Now, you got your TerraFlex shock absorbers up there and halfway mounted, but it's key. They're a lot longer. So there's some valving inside of the shock absorber here, and you can see the valving. Now, what that does, it controls the spring oscillations. The springs control the ride height. So it has to be in the right place for it to work proper. This set does that. It works proper.
And you got to get the right shocks, especially with this much lift. I've been that guy. I hate to admit it. Tried to take the cheap way out. Factory shocks don't last very long at all. So you want to have a great setup like we do.
Now, we put a lot of work into this one. Hey, let's see how far we come. Now, one of the first things we had to do was get our Chief Tech Chase over here with his torches and fire it up and cut off some brackets, the factory brackets. And you can see what he did right here. He actually cut this bracket off. This is the factory bracket, and what that did, it allowed the control arm to go by without hitting it, and then we had to cut another one off right behind it. Now, when we did that, he took his welder out, and he went ahead and welded all the way around, made sure it was secure. Now, that was real easy because it positioned right in place. TerraFlex built it in to where the bolt goes in, and it's in place. So your alignment geometry angles are going to be right. Then what's left then is we had to come over here and put some parts on. And you can see them right here, starting with the brake hose. Now, we had to extend that due to the lift, 4 inches. We don't want that overstressed. It's got a nice braided line on here, so you're going to get a brake feel that's really, really good, no expansion, even with the extra length. You can see the shock absorber here. We talked about that earlier, and the valving, that 4 inches gives you a huge lift right here, and then the valving's in the right place as well. Then what we did is we went ahead and put our bump stops in up here, and then Brian's going to have to put the bump stop on the bottom, and we ended up with our track rod and our sway bar. Now, I really like the sway bar because it disconnects from here and you can put it up there. So why? Well, we're not using it. I know the owner to this car, and he's going to go off-road with this thing, and he's probably going to want to disconnect it for some rock climbing. Now, all that engineering went into this kit in the rear as well. I'm going to get a demo set up over on the table to show you how to lift some vehicles, but Brian's back there right now looking at some of that engineering. And Brian, the geometry angles are key back there as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of work that's been done. We've told you that. We've got the lower control arm in back here, the upper control arm in. Now, a couple things. We had to relocate a bracket very similarly to what we had to do up front. This bracket was originally way back up here, and we had to replace it with a new bracket right here. Now, this has all been MIG welded. John talked about that. We ground it down, got the surfaces clean. That's key if you're going to get a good weld in. You want a good weld in because it's got a heck of a load on it. So, here on the lower control arm, you can see the bridge in this design. That's additional strength. Same with the semi-round design up here that TerraFlex engineered into the upper control arm. We've got this mounted so that we've got the Zerk fitting showing right here, which is going to be paramount if we're going to take care of this beast, because we're going to definitely get it muddy. So upper and lower control arms are in. We've got our new spring in back here. We talked about the variable rate of the springs. You're going to see why that matters more up front in a second. We've got our sway bar connect. We've got our new shock in, new brake line, all set back up. Everything's been torqued. Can't stress, follow directions, follow the YouTube link from TerraFlex. It's easy to do. So be sure you got the right tools for the job. A little time, a little patience, and follow the step-by-step. More to come with this beastie upgrade on our JK on Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts, after the break.